Idaho's politicians are addicted to federal money. Now, we already knew this from the fact that 2 out of every $5 our state spends is subsidized by Washington, D.C. But this year, things are different. Lawmakers are expanding the reach of our state's largest budgeted program, Medicaid. To do it, lawmakers are exploiting loopholes to bring more people into government dependency while shifting costs to the federal taxpayer. This perpetuates the illusion that Idaho is in a sound financial position as we expand these programs to support the medical industrial complex. Meanwhile, the cost is borne by contributing to our nation's worsening financial position. On this week's episode of Fiscal Fridays, we will look into two very concerning policies that are headed to the governor's desk as we speak, and look into how they could affect you in the long run. An obvious problem with any new Medicaid policy is when the program would simply throw more funding into the system without any discernment. State-directed payments are this type of policy, and no one is talking about it. House Bill 577 would direct the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare to establish a state-directed payment system for behavioral health services. This program would provide additional funding through Medicaid to, quote, offset losses associated with providing services. But what are these payments exactly? Currently, Medicaid pays the cost of services according to a rate set by a third party who pays out the benefits. Generally, this rate schedule is lower than the cost providers report for providing services. Despite these reimbursements being actuarially sound, providers still complain about the gap. Thus, states are trying to find loopholes that allows them to supplement with reimbursements to fill the gap. The national cost of this gap filler is around $38 billion. This is one of the fastest growing payments programs among states. But why? The reason is that states are easily able to offset the cost of these payments to the federal government. Thus, states get more welfare at a discount. Washington expects states to chip in a portion of the cost of the program, which is about a 70-30 split, with the feds paying the larger portion. But states abuse the system by raising money from taxing your healthcare providers more. States win because they didn't have to dip into the general fund to pay for a new program, and providers win because they end up receiving more in federal funding than they paid in taxes. For those providers who didn't break even, the taxes raise the cost of doing business, which are just passed on to you, who is already paying a premium for care. Thus, you get hit twice, once in higher federal taxes, spending, and debt, then again when you dare to pay for your own non-subsidized health care. The shifting of costs to the federal government is not just isolated to this bill. This week, the legislature also passed a bill to extend postpartum care to new mothers who were on Medicaid. The program will be enacted through House Bill 633, as it is headed to the governor's desk. The state's spending on the program will be approximately $55 million. But don't worry, Uncle Sam will pay for it, as Idaho will move these people to a higher federal match rate. When this is all said and done, the population will go from being about 68% federally funded to 90%. The worst part is that this new program won't help new mothers at all. It is wrong for lawmakers to assume that just because people are on the program, they will be better off. The famous Oregon health experiment found that those added to the program had better self-reported health, but no actual health benefits were actually observed in the study. In the meantime, lawmakers passed a feel-good policy that only harms those who are trying to pay for their own care. So what does all this mean for you? Contrary to commentary from bureaucrats in the Department of Health and Welfare, federal money is not free. We should be watching what we spend, even if it is not charged directly to the state. Our national budget deficit is largely driven by entitlement programs like Medicaid. The Treasury reports the gap in funding will be nearly double our gross domestic product by 2050. And our children are paying for this recklessness. To add insult to injury, these new programs will devalue our currency and increase healthcare prices, making it harder for you to sustain your own family. Idahoans need to take this expansion of the welfare state seriously. There is no such thing as free money. Exploiting loopholes to expand welfare on the federal dime is short-sighted and very damaging to all parties involved. At some point, our lenders will come to collect their debts. Thank you for supporting the content we produce at the Idaho Freedom Foundation. Be sure to like and subscribe to help spread our message of freedom, family, and small government. To get some of our other great content, including the 2024 Freedom Index, please be sure to visit idahofreedom.org.